little tech video on hydraulic throwout bearings or CSCs or slaves, whatever you want to call them. Seems to be there's a lot of misnomer, just misunderstanding in the industry here, and since we always include a new bearing with our kits, I want everybody to understand how this works, what it does, and some things to check with it. So we've got 3 different bearings here on the bench. We've got different spacers, just so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about. These bearings have a spring inside here, which is what essentially keeps the bearing always in its fully extended position. When I say fully extended, it's not going to move any further than this. So when you put the transmission or the torque tube in the car, this needs to contact the clutch fingers and it needs to compress. If it doesn't, then we're going to need to space it. Now, all of our kits come with exactly the bearing and the spacer that you need. It'll be spelled out in the instruction as to what you need to do. So, if we want to take a look real quick too, we've got different heights of spacers here, and there's something I want everybody to see and to realize. Just because we might use a different spacer, it does not in any way change how far this bearing is going to go. All it does is it change where it is in relation to the fingers. All right, further away or closer. A lot of times what we'll ask you guys to do to double check is we'll take a measurement of the clutch fingers and then a measurement of this bearing to make sure it's in the right position. With the Mantic clutches, we generally like to see this bearing compress about a ½ an inch when it's installed. So again, when you put the car together, you put the transmission in, whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that this bearing touches the fingers of the clutch and gets pushed back about a ½ an inch. That will ensure that it's going to work properly. Because when you step on the pedal, you're displacing fluid through the line and it's going to move the bearing. And then the clutch is going to push it back. If it's all the way extended and you step on the pedal, you're just going to push this off the end and it's going to leak and you're going to have to do it all over again. So having said all that, I want everybody to understand that what dictates how far this bearing is going to travel is actually the master cylinder and how much pedal travel you have. This is why sometimes you'll choose to use an adjustable master cylinder to get a little more fluid displacement and move this bearing further, which then in turn moves the fingers of the clutch further. So, if you want to check and see exactly how much bearing travel you're getting, it can be done fairly easily. And I realize we're set up on a bench here. It's a little more complicated in the car, but the concept is exactly the same. So if you want to know, or heaven forbid you're having trouble, here's a way to do this. So have one of your stronger friends compress your bearing all the way, and you want to set up the dial indicator like we did before, okay? So either with a bungee or a trucker strap or something, hold the bearing all the way compressed, and then have somebody step on the pedal, stroke it as such, and you can measure how far or how much travel you get, and then retract it. And then maybe do it again just to make sure. And then you can take that actual measurement, and that will let you know how much travel you're getting in the vehicle with the master and everything you actually have. And for our setup, so long as you're getting about 400 thousandths, well, about 370 for the C7s, but that's a little different, you know that the clutch is going to work, especially after we've tested it like we did. We know how much the clutch needs. We know how much we're actually getting from the vehicle with the setup. It's a done deal.